I should have noticed something was off when she started getting ready for the alumni party. She was unusually excited, spending hours picking out the perfect dress, doing her hair, and reapplying her makeup until it was flawless. I chalked it up to nostalgia. After all, this was the first reunion her school had organized in years. She kept saying how much she was looking forward to catching up with her old friends. "Are you sure you don't want to come?" she asked me that afternoon, standing in front of the mirror, fastening a necklace I'd bought her on our last anniversary. "I just feel out of place," I replied. I wasn't from her school, didn't know her classmates, and didn't want to spend the evening making small talk with strangers. She didn't press the issue. "All right," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'll tell everyone you said hi." The party was in the next town over, at some fancy hotel ballroom. She left just after 6, promising she wouldn't be home too late. I settled onto the couch with a beer and a game on TV, enjoying the rare quiet in the house. But as the hours dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Maybe it was the fact that she wasn't texting me like she usually did when she was out. Or maybe it was just my imagination running wild. I tried to ignore it, but by midnight, when she still wasn't home, the unease had turned into a gnawing anxiety. I texted her. "Everything okay? Getting late." No response. By 1 in the morning, I was pacing the living room, my stomach in knots. Then, just as I was about to call her, I heard her car pull into the driveway. When she walked in, I could tell immediately that something was off. Her hair was slightly mussed, and her makeup, which had been perfect earlier, was smudged. She looked startled to see me still up. "You're late," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "How was the party?" "It was fine," she replied quickly, avoiding my eyes. "Just lost track of time." "Lost track of time?" I repeated, my suspicion growing. "You didn't even text me back." Her face flushed, and she mumbled something about the music being too loud and her phone dying. It didn't add up, but I didn't press her. Not yet. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened. So I did something I'd never done before. I checked her phone while she was in the shower. I hated myself for it, but I needed answers. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were texts from a man named Alex, someone she'd mentioned in passing as an old school friend. Their messages were casual at first, but as I scrolled further, they became more intimate. There were references to meeting at the reunion, to slipping away from the party together. And then, the message that made my stomach drop. "Last night was incredible. I've missed you so much." When she came out of the shower, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, her phone in my hand. She froze, her towel clutched tightly around her. "Care to explain this?" I asked, my voice low but shaking with anger. Her face went pale, and for a moment she looked like she might deny it. But then she broke down, tears streaming down her face as she confessed. Yes, she'd met Alex at the reunion. Yes, they'd slipped away from the party to catch up. And yes, she had betrayed me. "It was a mistake," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just, seeing him brought back so many memories, and I got caught up in the moment. But it didn't mean anything, I swear." Her words felt like daggers, each one slicing deeper than the last. I couldn't even look at her. I left the house, needing space to think, to breathe. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to make sense of what had happened, but there was no sense to be found. In the days that followed, we had countless painful conversations. She begged for forgiveness, promised it would never happen again, and offered to go to therapy. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again, but I wasn't ready to make a decision. Not yet. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, trying to figure out if the love we once shared is strong enough to survive this betrayal, or if some wounds are simply too deep to heal. In the days following her confession, the atmosphere in the house was suffocating. Every room felt heavy with the weight of what had happened, every silence filled with unspoken words. She tried to reach out, to explain herself again and again, but I wasn't ready to hear it. I wasn't ready to do anything except sit with my anger and confusion. At night, I found myself replaying the events in my head, the texts, her smudged makeup, the way she'd avoided my eyes when she came home. Each detail felt like a fresh cut, a reminder of how deeply she'd hurt me. I barely slept, and when I did, my dreams were filled with images of her and Alex together, laughing, touching. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my chest tight with rage and grief. She tried to give me space, but I could see the guilt eating away at her. She spent hours in the kitchen cooking meals I barely touched, left me notes apologizing for what she'd done, even started sleeping in the guest room without me asking. I wanted to hate her, to throw all of that guilt back in her face, but I couldn't. Somewhere beneath the pain, I still loved her, and that only made it hurt more. One evening, a week after the reunion, she sat me down at the dining table. Her hands were trembling as she pushed a piece of paper toward me. It was a list of therapists, marriage counselors, support groups. "I know I can't undo what I've done," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll delete his number. I'll do anything. Just, please don't give up on us." Her words broke something in me. I wanted to scream at her, to demand why she hadn't thought about fixing our relationship before it was too late. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the list. Part of me wanted to believe her, to believe that we could somehow get past this. But another part of me, the part that still felt the sting of her betrayal, wasn't so sure. I agreed to start therapy, but not together. I needed to sort through my own feelings before I could even think about addressing our relationship. My therapist helped me understand that it was okay to feel angry, to feel betrayed. "You don't have to decide anything right away," she told me. "Healing takes time, whether you do it together or apart." Meanwhile, she started going to therapy on her own. She stopped texting me during the day, saying she didn't want me to feel pressured to respond. She gave me space, but she also made it clear that she was still there, waiting for me to decide if I wanted to try to rebuild what we had. One night, I came home late from work to find her sitting on the couch, an old photo album in her lap. She was looking at pictures from the early days of our relationship, our wedding, our first vacation, the day we brought our dog home. Her eyes were red, and when she saw me, she quickly wiped her cheeks. "I was looking at these, trying to remember what it felt like to be us," she said. "Back before I messed everything up." Her honesty was disarming, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of something other than anger. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step. I sat down beside her, and for hours we talked. About the reunion, about Alex, about the years we'd spent slowly drifting apart without even realizing it. She admitted that she'd been feeling lonely, unappreciated, and unsure of her place in my life. It wasn't an excuse, and she didn't try to make it one, but it gave me a glimpse into her mind. The road ahead feels impossibly long. I don't know if we'll make it to the end together or if this is the beginning of the end for us. But for the first time since that night, I feel like there's a chance, however small, that we might find a way forward. Months passed, each one feeling like a test of our strength, our patience, and our willingness to confront the ugly truths we had avoided for years. Therapy became a weekly ritual for both of us, separately at first, then together. At first, those joint sessions were excruciating, filled with tears, accusations, and long silences. But over time, they became a space where we could speak honestly, sometimes for the first time in years. The process was anything but smooth. There were setbacks, moments when I felt like we were just going in circles, rehashing the same pain without finding a way forward. But then there were moments of clarity, breakthroughs that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. One evening, after a particularly emotional session, she turned to me as we sat in the car outside the therapist's office. "Do you think we'll ever get back to what we were?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. I stared out the window for a long time before answering. "I don't think we can go back," I said. "But maybe we can build something new." That idea, of building something new, became our focus. We stopped trying to recreate the relationship we'd had before the betrayal and started thinking about what we wanted now, as the people we'd become. It wasn't about erasing the past but about learning to live with it, to let it inform our choices without letting it define us. As part of that process, she wrote Alex a final message, one we crafted together in therapy. It was short and direct. I made a terrible mistake, and I'm choosing to focus on repairing my marriage. Please don't contact me again. She blocked his number afterward, a small but significant gesture that showed me she was serious about moving forward. For my part, I worked on letting go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me for months. It wasn't easy. I had to remind myself daily that holding on to those feelings wouldn't change what had happened. Slowly, I started to see her not just as the woman who had betrayed me but as someone who was flawed, human, and deeply remorseful. We also made changes to our daily lives. We started spending more time together, real time, without distractions. We cooked meals together, went on walks, even joined a dance class, something we'd talked about for years but never actually done. Those small acts of connection became the foundation of the something new we were trying to build. The final decision came one night as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of calm. She reached for my hand, her touch tentative but warm. I know I don't deserve a second chance, she said softly. But I want one. I want us. Do you? I didn't answer right away. I thought about everything we'd been through, the pain, the hard conversations, the moments when it felt like we'd never find our way back to each other. But I also thought about the progress we'd made, the small victories, the glimpses of hope. I do, I said finally. But it's not going to be easy. We'll have to keep working at it, every day. She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. I'm ready for that. For as long as it takes. We're still a work in progress. Some days are harder than others, and there are moments when the past feels too close, too raw. But we've made the choice to move forward together, to rebuild, not as the couple we were, but as the couple we're becoming. It's not a fairy tale ending, but it's real, and for now, that's enough.